What you drinking?
They said it's a killer Mike. I just tasted it and I had to ask myself the same question. What am I drinking? For real, I haven't tasted anything like it.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm drinking the auntie, which is
Auntie.
like a honey chai latte.
Yeah.
Like a honey chai latte. Simple.
Simple. Nah, this
Yeah.
this is killer apparently.
Let me see what's
It's super
double
strong.
espresso drip.
Yeah, it's super strong.
Okay.
I ain't mean to get all that.
You're gonna be lit in about 15 minutes.
I hope so. Off of coffee though.
Mm-hmm. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Shibbon Winelle, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Z Harrell of Think S.A.M.E. I want you to introduce yourself to the people, let them know who you are and how you came about with Think S.A.M.E. and what it is. Like, what is Think S.A.M.E.?
Oh man, think same. So same is an acronym for sexual awareness for men's education. And unfortunately, but fortunately for others, I kind of stumbled upon it through life experience. So originally, I was a registered nurse. I had been nursing for about 3 years in critical care. I was trying to get into anesthesia school, which eventually I did. So I was about to start a doctoral program in Tampa. My life was secure,
Yeah, it
right?
was.
Everything was good. It was going
Mhm.
up. I was going to be a doctor by 30. I got friends right now making $500,000 to $1 million off of anesthesia, just working their butts off. So that was the life that I was heading towards. I was a party animal, so to speak. Graduated from Georgia Southern. Did a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, but just in good fun, right? And through those times, and as I look back now, I realized that I kind of had a false concept of how to mix alcohol and sex. I say how to because we shouldn't. But long story short, uh, I found myself in a situation with a young lady, and we had been drinking. And the next day, she said that she could not consent to sex. And I won't really get into too many details about it because it's not really the details that's important. It's the lesson behind it.
Absolutely.
And what I learned behind that situation, I actually learned twofold things. I learned a lot about consent. I learned a lot about consent by itself and consent in the context with any mind altering substance. And that situation led me to prison. Believe it or not, I did 7 years in prison.
Wow.
Hardest time of my life. Never been in trouble a day in my life.
Hmm.
With no traffic tickets, no nothing. But because I had a lapse of judgment in something that seemed normal, going out,
It's the
drinking.
culture.
It's the culture, right? We
Yeah.
see it on TV. We see it. We hear it in music videos. We see it within our friend groups, our
In our
social groups,
family.
in our families. Going out drinking or going out or whatever mind altering substance that you partake in, and then tying it to a sexual relation, a sexual engagement. And it sounds like it's all fun and games, but I realized through my situation that it's so risky because all it took was for one person to feel taken advantage of, not to discredit whether that was real or false. That doesn't matter. They felt taken advantage of, and they felt like they couldn't consent. And I learned that with any type of mind altering substance, technically you can't consent.
That's right.
And it's crazy. So I just had a speaking engagement today with some students
Mm-hmm.
in Massachusetts, and I was telling them when I grew up, I was taught you don't get involved or you don't have sex with someone who's drunk, right?
Right.
You don't have sex with somebody who's high.
Right. But they don't give you like any. They just say don't.
They just say don't.
They don't explain anything further.
But what I learned is from my situation is you don't have sex with anyone who's been drinking. You shouldn't even get involved if they partaking in any of these substances because it's just so risky. All it takes is one time for a person to say, "Hey, I didn't consent to that." Anyway, I ended up going to prison, and during that time, and doing a lot of self-reflection and understanding the mistakes that I made. And I'm sorry, it's really twofold because I learned a lot about coercion and persuasion too.
Ooh.
I learned a lot about negotiating someone's no. And it sounds so trivial, but I learned a lot about that, and it made me get all of that information and all of that pain that I was going through, and I created saying sexual awareness for men's education. to bring awareness to sexual decision making in the eyes of, well, in relation to alcohol, but really any mind altering substance, consent in general. And I want to go out and I want to talk to students. I want to talk to athletes. I want to talk to men and women, because the word men is in women. This is for everybody because it goes on so much.
Yeah, both ways.
Yeah, most definitely.
Both ways. So you mentioned that you had a conversation with some high schoolers today.
Yeah.
Were you able to get any feedback from them?
I mean, so they were a rambunctious group because we was having some technical difficulties, so I was running out of time. But when I finished, there was just this tremendous round of applause from them. And I had to go, unfortunately, but the teacher reached out to me later on and said they absolutely loved it. They had so many questions, and they said, hey, he should come back next year and speak to the seniors coming up. So that just proves to me how relevant this information is, even to an age group of between 17 and 18. This is relevant early on.
Very early.
Very early on.
Which actually brings me to why I wanted to have this conversation with you, the person behind this platform. So I've been following you really only for a few months. I discovered the page about 2.5, maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah.
We say, yeah, like I'm supposed to.
Nah. Well, the reason why you just found out about it is because I was just released from prison in December 2025. And I immediately, with the help of my wife, shout out to my wife, love you, immediately created S.A.M.E. and got to work, started putting the message out.
It's May, so wait, December you got out, so January, February, March, April, May. That's how much you've grown in the last 5 months?
Yes, ma'am. And it's crazy because really most of that growth was the first 2 months. And unfortunately, I kind of just stopped because it was so controversial. Got a lot of actually I got more positive feedback than I did negative. Yeah. But the negative rings can be so loud. Harsh. It's so harsh that it
can hit so hard.
Me. Yeah, man. I'm talking about grown man in there crying. They making a grown man cry.
Listen,
some of them comments, boy.
I lost my son 7 years ago. So around the same time that you were taken away from us, from the public, yeah, my son was taken away from us. Yeah. And it took me this long to get to the point where I can do stuff like this, have these type of conversations, because like the blowback of the negativity, yeah, but then you also have to deal with the fact that you have people who do care about you, and they're bringing that negativity to you, so you're aware of what's going on, and it's like, well, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. And it can get overwhelming. And so I just want to say, anyhow you can find the strength to continue doing the work. It's not easy, but it's necessary. I remember in my last 48 hours with Bryce, he was talking about a plethora of things, just going back and forth between different topics of conversation, whether that had to do with family drama or issues with his friends, or the actual recruiting process and the transition going into the collegiate athletic world. Right. But something that he brought up multiple times was sex. And his exact words, every single time he brought up the topic, was, "Mommy, I think I'm using sex to communicate in the wrong ways." Mm. And I didn't really get a chance to go into any details with him about it, mostly because during that time we were just dealing with so much. But I would give him insight. I remember one time we were sitting at this park in Deerfield called Mayo Howard Park, 2:00 in the afternoon, and he brings it up. And I was like, you have to learn how to control your sexual nature. And once you learn how to control or have discipline over that, it's easier to have discipline in other areas of your life. And we're having that type of conversation. So
I commend you for, even as a mother, to say, hey, you have to learn how to control your sexual nature and be disciplined. Like that's monumental. That's big. I just think about, my parents were great, but I think about my upbringing, and the only conversation I ever had about sex was, make sure you wear a condom. That was definitely part of the conversation. I mean, right, but you said something else that was so profound. Discipline, you know.
So I'll go even further into the conversation. This, I hope I don't get emotional, but I was explaining to him that our sexual nature is the thing that is closest to God.
Right.
And I didn't start by telling him. I asked him, I said, what part of you is closest to God? And he was like, oh, my crown, like my mind, my third eye. And I was like, okay, let's look at the trees. There's trees in front of us. Let's look at the trees. I said, what part of the trees is closest to God? And he was like, the leaves and the branches. And I said, okay, what part of that is reference to your body? He said, that's my head. I said, okay, what about the rest of the tree? He was like, okay, the trunk is like my body. I said, okay. I said, what about the roots? The roots of the tree. He was like, oh, that would be my legs. I said, okay, but the roots of the tree has to be, it comes from a seed that has to be buried into the ground, into darkness. And it's only that seed having faith that it's going to find light to sustain itself that causes it to spring roots. And it's the love and the need that the roots have for that light that forces the roots to push through the ground. So the part of you that is going to be closest to God is your roots, which is your sexual nature. And he was like, "Oh, mommy, you need to teach my kid my feelings." And so we have those type of conversations, right. And it gets that deep between us. But he was already having his experiences, and this is a child where we're having these type of conversations throughout his life. This is how I communicate with him on a regular basis. So once he started having his sexual experiences, it triggered him spiritually to feel convicted, yeah, by everything that he knew he was raised to understand. He's also raised in a household where he's fully aware since childhood that his mother was molested by her father. Now, I'm able to speak about it pretty openly because I used to speak about it in groups, coming up in my late 20s, coming into my 30s, and it's even part of the ESPN documentary. Okay. So it's public knowledge, so I don't have any, but understand that he's a young man growing up in that type of environment with a mother who's actively fighting against her family for her father to be held accountable. He's watching that battle in real time, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, coming into puberty. And so we were able to have a lot of conversations openly. Yeah. And when you said earlier that these experiences happen at a young age, my son was having these experiences that I'm aware of. Or I would say that he's aware of, because he may have had experiences before he was even aware. But as far as I'm aware, they started like 4th, 5th grade, coming into middle school. That's 9, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's 9, 10, 11 years old.
I know I started navigating sexual waters physically, rather, 13. But I was introduced to it earlier on, like 11, 10, via, television.
Yeah.
Right?
Magazines, music videos.
And you go into this realm, this intricate realm of just information, right? Without proper guidance. And it starts to distort how you view it, right? So one thing about young boys coming up, we feel like, well, I'm not going to say we, but I knew I grew up thinking that the more women that I acquired, the more of the man I was, right? I was more popular. I was that guy, right? And I started to combine that with my natural lust as a young man going into puberty and watching these videos or TV or whatever the case may be. So now I'm trying to acquire as many women as I can because that validates who I am. That's my ego. And then I'm also tying it with sex. So now as I continue to tie these two separate things, I combine them naturally and start to think, well, the more women that I sleep with, the more of the man that I am. And that's just the beginning, because now I've already, kind of like your son said, I'm using sex the wrong way. And that's just one example of using it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
You start off in something so complex with a distorted mind frame. So then you take that distorted view, and then you graduate high school. Now you're in college, and then you add alcohol, you add drugs. So now I'm distorting something.
You also add adult masculine competition.
Right, that as well. So now I'm distorting something that's already distorted with something that distorts your POV, your point of view, your clarity, and it can get so messy, man.
Well, not only does it distort your reality from a just interaction experience, but chemically.
Yeah.
Which is why we have sex addicts, right? Because they're looking for that chemical release every single time. So you're also creating distortions within yourself chemically and wiring your body for this type of lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly correct.
Now, were you an athlete?
Well, that's kind of controversial. Some will say yes, some will say no. But I played all the way through high school. Tried to walk on at Valdosta my freshman year. I didn't make it the first time, but I ended up being offered to come back and play some safety.
Okay.
And but I never even got a chance to because I ended up answer your question. So kind of maybe kind of
but you
not really.
You understand the life of an athlete between high school coming into college.
Most definitely. So the closest relation that I have to that lifestyle would be my fraternity lifestyle. It is basically the same. It's not the same thing, but it's the same thing, right? Especially how we experience college. As far as like the women,
I don't like touching on the Divine Nine.
Oh well,
they are very. Go ahead.
Oh well, hold on, wait a minute.
That's your people. I'm not. I'm a lone wolf all through life.
Well, this is the thing. So all right, we touched on that real quick. This is how I feel because I feel like that's where the conversation was going. As long as God remains the head of your life, and that is who you pay your homage to, right? Then I don't see a problem with it. But if you start worshiping other things, then that is a problem.
Right.
I believe I used to worship subconsciously, unknowingly, my fraternity. I was Kappa this, Kappa that, Kappa that.
You spoke about Kappa more than you spoke about your relationship with God.
I did. Did I have a relationship with God? Absolutely. But I was noob everything, right? Just to kind of say it when
you were in a toxic relationship with God.
I was in a lot of toxic relationships, probably.
Well, but that's how it's full circle like that.
It's full circle. But even after my experience changed my perspective on a lot of things. God is the head of my life. Now I don't worship anything but God, and I'm kind of learning this. We're going somewhere else, but I got a wife. I'm kind of sometimes naturally we'll try to lift our significant other up a little higher than God. So I'm still battling like, no, God is the head of my life. Absolutely. That's another topic for another day, but
it's not though because your sexual.
Well, you know what?
Or
that
is directly related to your relationship with God.
Yeah, for sure.
So the further you are away from God, the more likely you are to be a little bit more casual in your sexual affairs.
Oh, most definitely.
And not have as many principles applied to your how you pursue sex, how you engage in sex.
No, yeah, for sure. But as far as the college life, frat life, it's pretty much the same. Like with the parties. The athletic life and the frat life, with the women and the parties and the culture in itself is extremely similar. Extremely similar.
So I know you also said that, it's called S.A.M.E, sexual education for men's awareness. Did I say that right? Sexual awareness for men's education. I flip education and awareness.
Yeah, you almost had me thinking it was like that. Is that right?
But it's also for women.
Most definitely.
So I want to share an instant that Bryce shared with me that allowed me to recognize where his thought process was. I want to say this was about 3 to 4 months before he decided to leave us. He had a friend of his that had went to college before him. So she was already in college and he was in his senior year. And she reached out to him, just kind of uh, venting about her experience that she had. Another athlete that my son had hooked her up with. They went out, they had drinks, they came back, whatever.
They had drinks?
They're in college.
Oh, they're in college. Okay.
Yeah, so they had drinks, they came back, whatever happened, and the next day, she's pretty much explaining to my son that she feels violated. And Bryce, being who he is, he's going to ask questions before he gives any insight. And so he's asking her, like, well, what happened? What's the details? Okay, both of you were drunk. Well, what did he say? Did you say anything to him? And she did communicate to the gentleman that she felt uncomfortable. She didn't enjoy the experience, and he didn't even remember it. He didn't even remember anything happened. And so in that type of dynamic, now Bryce is coming to me and he's like, well, who's at fault here? Because if they're both intoxicated, he doesn't even remember. That means that technically he didn't say yes to this. And if she's waking up the next morning remembering everything, but she feels violated because the dynamics didn't, I think she was explaining how she was being treated made her feel like however she felt. And so I just explained to him, when it comes to something like that, both parties need to be held accountable. On the gentleman's side, for him to get to the point to where he's so inebriated that he doesn't even remember what he did or what happened to him, is not okay.
It's not.
And then on the ladies' side, there's two aspects there. One, also being inebriated to the point where she's not communicating fully or even aware fully of how she feels about what's about to happen or is happening. And two, also being able to remove your feelings of how you were treated from what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I delivered that message to him. But I could tell that behind him asking about that scenario was him asking about his own experiences and questioning if he was being a safe person sexually when it came to women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just from what I learned from my experience, man, anytime alcohol is in the mix, it's best to avoid those situations because it's not, you aren't practicing that safely. Because, so in the situation you just gave me, both of those people should have been held accountable. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. They both had been drinking, so neither one of them could consent. So technically, both of them had been assaulted by one another, and it's crazy because had that young lady took it to the police,
which she was asking my son if she should,
had she done that, only he would have been prosecuted. And is it fair? Life isn't fair. But that's why I wanted to bring awareness to give us a little bit more protection. Because I realized that for the men, it's not a lot of protection for us in that area.
No.
A lot of the responsibility falls on us.
Absolutely.
As the man. And for the women, and I hope that you can shed more light on that because I don't want to come off the wrong way. But I do feel that there should be some accountability held in that area too. I'm not justifying any actions. I'm not saying that it's okay to do something just because you've been drinking. However, if you also have been drinking, then you have to hold yourself accountable as well.
Exactly.
Which is why I feel we shouldn't even put ourselves in that kind of situation. Because everybody, not everybody, I'm not going to say everybody.
What if sex was negotiated before the alcohol? Like you guys are planning a night out, you're already talking about what you're going to do sexually before you even start drinking.
Well, this is the thing with that. Just, again, from what I've learned, consent still can't be given after you are intoxicated. Now, if one was to try to pursue that legally, I don't think it will work out because it said y'all said that y'all agreed. But I will say that
People
could go,
change their
it could go both ways, which leads me into one of my core beliefs is that consent is the core, right? It must be clear. Cool. They had the clear communication in the beginning. They said, hey, this is what we're going to do. And they went and had drinks. It must be ongoing, meaning that consensual yes has to continue throughout the process. Well, this is where it already gets iffy because if you're inebriated or have been drinking or had any type of mind altering substance, well, technically you can no longer give consent, right? So in that example, and I just kind of broke it down for myself in real time, in that circumstance, absolutely not. You still can't give consent, even if you agree before time. It has to be ongoing, and it can't be ongoing if mind altering substances is involved. It's reversible. My bad.
Yeah,
it's reversible. So CORE, clear, ongoing, reversible, meaning that any person can change their mind at any given time, and we have to be okay with that. And I'm sorry I got to go into this. It's the reversible part. This is like kind of controversial too because sometimes a person might hear no, or somebody may say no, or not right now, and either party, male or female, will try to change that person's mind. Right?
I went through that recently. I'm sorry. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm 44 years old. And at my big age, at 44, he was a young gentleman, but at my big age, at 44-year-old, I went through that recently, where the gentleman spent about almost an hour of me saying no, like that's not what I'm here for, and him trying to convince me. And afterward, it did eventually happen.
Right.
Afterwards, I was just like, whatever. I'm a grown woman. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So it is what it is.
That's you being accountable for your actions.
Yeah, it is what it is. But we did have a conversation, and I just let him know, like, look, like, no matter what attraction is there,
right,
I'm trying to make decisions from a place of what's best for both of us.
Right.
Right. And so he agreed, and we continued having a cordial communication. Let me say that. I won't call it a relationship, but we continued cordial communication, and I ended up in the situation again.
Same person.
But this time I decided, I'm not going to entertain this person at all.
Right.
Because it's not that I'm not attracted to you. It's not that I do not want to get to know you. It's not that I don't want to eventually explore sex with you. It's just that in this very moment, I just didn't feel emotionally safe enough to go there with you.
Right.
And you applying that much pressure to me is not making me feel any more emotionally safe.
Man, sometimes we don't realize that confidence does give off pressure.
You know what's funny? That's what he called it. He called it confidence.
See, confidence.
That's crazy.
Can come off as because I had this conversation today, and I talked about how being confident can come off as pressure. In his mind, and in a lot of gentlemen's mind, we feel that we're being confident, we're being persistent, because we're taught to pursue, right?
And it's funny, I've only really had those type of pressure experiences with athletes. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, but
maybe it's some ego tied in that too. And again,
I think they're just so used to women throwing themselves at them that when they do meet a woman that's like, let's take our time. I want to just I just want to feel safe. Really,
I'm not gonna say that for all people, all men, but I can say I agree that does exist, because if you're so used to getting yes all the time, I'm not saying that it's right, but when you do get a no, well, you do feel like, well, I can, not forcefully or not maliciously, but I feel like I can change your mind with a little kiss here, with the right words here, with the right touch here. Now, let's go back a little bit. This didn't just come out of nowhere. Right. This is something that's being learned, and this is where I kind of feel like twofold accountability also comes into play. I'm not going to say personal experiences or anything like that, but I know of experiences through shared storytelling, where the woman or the man might say, "Hey, I'm good right now,"
Right.
and time and time again with different people, those no's would turn into a yes. Sometimes they didn't, but sometimes they did. And what that does is, over a consistent time span, it starts to build social constructs in our mind that, well, oh, she don't mean that, or he don't mean that. I can change his mind. I can change her mind. I know I've had a personal experience. I talked about it on my page. I had a personal experience where I told a young lady no, and she kept asking and kept, begging and pleading or whatever the case may be, doing all the little tricks that she knew that I liked,
but
to try to change my mind.
Because there's also, that does come off as attractive or sexually stimulating within itself.
Exactly. Some people like that. There was a comment saying that I don't even want a man unless he tries for me after I say no or something like that. And it gets confusing. It gets confusing because, well, in this setting it's okay, but in this setting it's not, right? Which is why I feel altogether it should just stop. The no has been normalized to an extent, like the normalized hearing no and still pursuing it, whether that just be come on, or whether that be it's okay, baby, just relax, or whether that be all right, I'm just gonna pour her some wine, or whether that be all right, we can just watch TV for a little bit, Netflix and chill, trying to still manipulate it and turn it into something else. And if that continues to happen over time, and you become an adult and you're so used to this going like this every time, well, when you get here, you think he's going to do the same thing,
right?
And that's when you could potentially violate someone, not maliciously, right? But still, intent does not override impact. I'm pretty sure that gentleman was not malicious in any way.
No, absolutely not.
But it did not override the impact,
right?
And neither did it override the impact that I made on the young lady as well. And these are the things that I've learned and the things that's been normalized, and I just kind of want to get out there and talk about it because it's so relevant and it's so real. Like, even when you pulled up, I was going to ask you, do you mind if I gave you a hug? I don't know how you feel about me giving you a hug.
I'm a hugger.
But she reached out and shook my hand and we shook hands. But even in that small instance, you got to ask for consent.
So, you know why I didn't hug you immediately?
Why that?
Because you're a married man. And I have the utmost respect for, the women that have found a good man. And I try to make sure that I don't have no, right? So, but I'm a hugger. So I don't mind giving you a hug. I just want to let wifey know that you got a good man here. So it's funny that you mentioned that, that element of coercion.
Oh, man.
I know, and you related it to impact. You said the intention doesn't override the impact.
Right.
This is how I know this is so true. It's even with men, especially with men.
Man,
more so than women give credit for.
I'm sorry, it bothers me so much. And now we briefly talked about it earlier. It bothers me when people can't accept that this is a thing. Like, this happens.
Listen,
maybe not you, but maybe you know somebody who's been a part of it or been in a situation. But, all right, go. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
The reason why I know it's impactful, and it's impactful to men more than we give credit to, is because here it is, my 17-year-old teenage son is coming to me,
right,
and telling me his mother, and I'm telling him, like, this is TMI, because I'm comfortable with you coming to tell me stuff.
As a young boy, man, you tell your mama everything.
But this time he was going into the details,
right,
like play by play.
Yeah, you probably 17, so you start feeling yourself a little more, then you can tell your mom some stuff.
But excuse me, I know that he was doing that because of how great of an impact the moment had on him.
Right. And
he wanted clarity about who he was and if he was still a good person, even though he allowed this to happen to himself. And what it is he had a young lady that let's call her like his middle school girlfriend.
Okay.
He's now a senior. And the person who I like to say is the love of his life went to college before him. So he's entering his senior year. She's entering to her freshman year of college.
Right.
But, and they decided to be, single. But everybody knew whenever she was around.
They knew what was up.
Everybody knew. I knew it, so I know all the other women knew it. All the other girls knew it, right? The gig is up whenever she's around. Period. But when she was not around, Bryce wasn't necessarily going to other young ladies looking for sex. He was going to other young ladies looking for emotional solace because he was missing this young lady so much. This is what he tells me. He says, "Mommy, I just called her up because I was missing Cammie and I want to talk to her about my relationship with Cammie and how it's going to move forward once I go to college. But next thing you know, she's stuck in my..."
Okay.
So of course I'm like, "Baby, TMI."
Right.
And then he's like, "No, Mom, I need you to understand. Like it went like this, and then it went like this, and then it went like this, and then I told her no, and da. And so, mind you, this same young lady claimed to be pregnant for my son after he passed. It's 7 years later, and I still have never seen proof of pregnancy. Now, here's the thing. That's not the issue.
Right.
The issue is if you're going to, you could have kept that news to yourself, and whatever the process you went through, you went through. But if you're going to bring that news to a freshly grieving mother, like that news came to me 4 days after my son passed, and you just completely exit my life with no more updates.
Yeah.
I have to hear through the grapevine that you had a miscarriage. It's like that piece of me is always in the background, like I wonder or what if, you know. And so I hate to be left hanging like that, but I can't also negate the fact that a part of me is like, this person already showed a pattern of certain manipulative behaviors when it came to her sexual relationship with my son.
Right.
I wonder.
No, yeah,
right?
that makes sense. That makes sense.
But isn't that also a part of the sexual trauma that men experience when women claim pregnancy and then they don't show proof of that, or they isn't there, or even getting pregnant within itself? So I'm in mental health. I coach a lot of people. I've coached women who have locked a man in at that climax,
right,
just to make sure, or talk him into it, even though they've already had numerous discussions about whether or not they want to have children or whether they're ready for it. They still talk them through it in the middle of the sexual act. That person, and a lot of times they're intoxicated. Is there anything that protects men in those dynamics?
Yeah, the only thing that protects them in that dynamic is prevention. Period. So, first off, if alcohol is involved, I don't know how many times I gotta say this, and I know it sounds crazy because, like, man, I could be going out with my wife and we have a couple drinks. I'm not saying don't be involved intimately with your spouse if you've been drinking. I'm just saying in those moments you need to still be aware and cognizant. But truth be told, if alcohol is involved, you should just stay away from it altogether because it already clouds your mind. It clouds your judgment.
It's part of. So here's the thing:
it's part of the culture.
You stress alcohol, you're more likely to case somebody up off of if you're high off of other substances.
Yeah.
Even in the legal world, like if you go and you report, oh, this person, I took some medication.
Yeah.
And while I was, on this medication, this person took advantage of me.
Yeah.
You're more likely to have that seen all the way through compared to we got drunk.
Man, they gonna see both. They gonna see both. But
then through experience.
Yeah, they gonna see both of them through, 100%.
But we don't hear those stories about alcohol because we only hear the stories when it's other substances.
I don't know
and the woman
why.
and the person, I can't say woman because it happens to men and women, but the person is able to have a little bit more innocence in the dynamic because once you're drinking, it kind of takes away from your own innocence in the dynamic.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm glad you're clarifying.
Yeah, there is no ignorance to you being drunk. You get no free pass if you have been drinking and you get accused of anything while both of you are one or two are inebriated. It doesn't matter. You get no pass.
Okay, so let's go back to the scenario with the two people that were drinking and he didn't remember and she felt violated. What if what if after she told him what happened,
Yeah.
he was to go and report her?
What should happen is that should be pursued, just like it would be for a woman.
So in that type of scenario, it would be whoever reported it first. However, we do live in a legal
Can we be
system.
real for a second? Like, no.
We
I
do.
mean, yes, but if a man did that, they're gonna look at him like that report is gonna be filed, and that's gonna be that. Unless
Yeah.
he's like he got to be super adamant about it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna turn out.
Most men are not going to do that because that makes them look less manly anyway.
That and most men, for the most part, just charge it to the game. Because there's been times where I have been drunk and someone has, quote unquote, and I hate to say it this way, but now that I know what it is, that's what it is. Someone has taken advantage of me, and I didn't necessarily want to be involved with that person, but it happened, right? And the next day I wake up and I'm like, what happened? And you tell me what happened. I didn't get mad about it. I just was like, dang. All right. And I'm not saying all people should be that way, but unfortunately,
That's the conditioning.
That's what it is for a lot of men. We just charge it to the game. I'm not saying women should charge it to the game either. I think that all parties should be more aware of being involved when any mind altering substance is involved.
Right.
That's all I can say. I'm gonna repeat that forever because it drastically changed my life.
You might have to repeat it forever because we live in a culture where people use the substances to get them to the point where they.
No,
this is this is the culture.
Yeah, and not even in a malicious way. It could be in a way like, hey, you going out and hey, you want something to drink? Like, I'm asking you that, but I'm not asking you that thinking about sex.
Right.
But subconsciously, I know if we do have something to drink, it'll be a little less tense. Right. Everybody be a little bit more loose,
relaxed.
More relaxed, right? I know I've heard things. I've heard people say, "I'm hornier when I drink." Like I heard people say that, or
yeah,
like
I'm a little hornier when I smoke, or
I'm a little bit more flirtatious on either of those things. Or it's better when I'm high. It's better when I'm drunk, right? And it's thoughts like that start to coincide with or cause us subconsciously to become inebriated just for these things.
Yeah, specifically
for that. Like I know when I was in college, I know there have been times where even I have said I last longer when I'm drinking, even as an adult. So, what man doesn't want to last longer to satisfy their partner? So, I'm gonna have a couple drinks. Now, I'm not saying I did that part, but I'm just saying
that's normal in our culture.
But it's so risky because all of these things that we consider normal, if continued, it leads to something so much more. It's already risky in the beginning, but it's super dangerous. It gives you a false ideation or idea of what sex is, and
so you said it gives a false ideation of what sex is.
Yeah.
Through your program, through S.A.M.E,
right?
Do you? You educate on consent,
right? Mainly consent, for sure.
Do you educate on what sex is? Because honestly, when you said that, I was like, well, wait a minute, what is sex? Because if we can educate on consent all day long, but if they don't even know what sex is supposed to look like with consent, then
so I don't really talk about it, honestly, in S.A.M.E. Just because, I mean, people got different beliefs, right? So I come from a Christian background, so I believe for me, sex is, for one, meant for, now I believe that it's meant for you and your partner, and it is an emotional and a spiritual connection, but its sole purpose is to create life. That's the purpose of sex. And God He's so good that He made it, pleasurable for us to enjoy the work of creating more life, to be fruitful and to multiply. So I don't really get into that much because you know how controversial it is to talk about religion in school and stuff like that.
That too.
But that's the purpose of sex. Like that's the purpose of to create life with your life partner.
Right.
And it happens to be pleasurable.
Now, I know you said you get a lot of pushback through your platforms. and I can testify working with clients, working with youth, and having these type of conversations. The pushback is there in everyday life too. So we have a generation of young men that are have examples of what their sexual life is supposed to look like from men who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Right.
And the older men are dead set on their ways.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we create this change? I know my son needed it. All three of my sons need it.
The way I feel we create change is by having more uncomfortable discussions, by keeping it real and having some accountability. Because if I'm not gonna lie to you, if you can't accept that there has been an instance, whether personal or shared experience or something you've heard where somebody has tried to change someone's no, then you won't benefit from what I'm saying. If you can't acknowledge or accept the fact that, you know, you have, or maybe somebody else been involved while drinking or while high, or while even on pain pills. If you can't accept those two things, then again, then you won't get anything from what I'm saying. But in order for this to take root, there has to be some acceptance, right? You have to get out of the denial stage, and we have to talk about it. You have to see men like me who was living, by all means, a good life, on the way to be a doctor, never been in trouble day in his life, and you have to kind of put under a microscope what happened and the way that I thought and how that led to my situation. You have to see the example, unfortunately, and we have to talk about it. And it's like when I came out with the information, a lot of people was like, man, you can't talk about that. How you gonna go do this to somebody and come and talk about it? Well,
you're the best person, I think.
I can come talk about it, but because I went through this situation with poor concept of consent, not that I didn't know what consent was, but did I? Right? Like,
as I reflect, I realize I'm guilty too.
And so you see, this
like
conversations I want to have.
A man has told me no,
like,
and I'm realizing like I changed
that man's mind. I changed. So that's persuasion, that's coercion, and it could have been something else if that person wanted it to be so. And there's so many similar situations that's ongoing, and we just overlook it because it seems so normal. And we just gotta talk about it. And we gotta be real, man.
Yeah.
And we have to hold ourselves accountable. Period. If you can't hold yourself accountable, then you won't benefit from it. And
absolutely,
man, I was just getting a lot of negativity when I first came with it, man. Oh, how you gonna tell this? You can't talk about this. You rapist and all that stuff. I said grape, all that stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yo.
I think the people who have the experience is the best people to speak on it, especially if they're speaking on it from a place of I want to create change. Because, mind you, we have a whole platform today that's dedicated to husbands that fantasize or act on rape with their wives. Like, they just shut that website down a few months ago.
So I had a small discussion with my wife today, actually, and she was telling me about, she was talking to one of her friends, and they was like, they said something in regards to, I can't believe that, something like she didn't know that there was a such thing as marital rape. And my wife started explaining to her, yes, there is. Because I had taught her about it through an experience I learned from, being inside. I met a man, S3X, which made me look it up. And there is a thing called marital rape. Mm-hmm. Just because that's your spouse, they still also have the right to say, I don't want to. And if they say that, and husbands and wives, and you've been told no by your spouse, and you try to change their mind, then you I
did it in my marriage too. Now that I think about it,
you too are guilty of this. The only difference is it wasn't reported.
There's two things I want to cover before we end this. One is, earlier you mentioned, you started having experiences around 13, but probably around 11 is when you were introduced.
Yeah.
When were you introduced to the word consent?
Oh, man, that's crazy. You know what? I don't think that I was ever really taught. I don't think that it was something that I learned naturally, right? But it was never a discussion in the household. Again, my parents were great, but perhaps ill-informed, just like a lot of us. I know consent is a discussion in my household, even with my daughter when it comes to tickling. If we're tickling her, and she say no, we stop. And we explain to her, well, you said stop, baby. She was like, no, I want you to tickle me. But I said, but you told us to stop. You said no, so now we have to treat it that way. And it starts even as small as that. But to answer your question, I have no idea when consent.
I think that's diabolical.
Yeah, I have no idea when consent was brought up.
So I think the word consent needs to be part of the curriculum, the educational curriculum.
Most definitely. Let me teach it. Because who better to teach it than someone who lived it? Right?
Exactly.
I know.
I'm sorry. I don't think there will be a man who has not experienced what you've experienced.
Most definitely
that would be willing to teach on this.
Who wants to? And
because
that's what
I think they would think they would look less masculine. They would be betraying the bro code or something along those lines. I think it takes a man who had to go through the fire and let God turn him into silver so that he can now bless the audience. I don't see it happening any other way, especially amongst the culture of male ego and masculinity.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's hard. It's tough.
Earlier, I mentioned my own sexual abuse, and I know from my own personal experiences that, especially early, when I didn't start my healing process yet, my abuse contributed significantly to my ability to give consent and my ability to stand firm on my no.
Right.
And so, do you feel like, I don't know if you've ever gone through any abuse yourself, but as a man, I'm sure you've met women that you've been involved with who has had some type of abuse happen in their lifetime. Do you feel like when you dealt with women that came from that type of background, that consent versus no was a little bit more muddied?
Honestly, I think consent in general, whether the abuse takes place or not, I believe it's muddy. To be honest,
It's straight across the board. It don't matter if you've been through it or not.
Because I think about several encounters where foreplay is taking place, right? And everybody just continues to move forward without an actual conversation, without a question. I mean, that's the perfect example, I feel, of misinformed consent. Just continuing something just because this is the natural flow of things, or because we did it yesterday, right? Like, come on, man. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Those are so. But I will say those with traumatic experiences, whether it be abuse of any kind, it shows up. Man, listen.
The head scratches telling.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that where it's at. I'm gonna leave that where it's at. But
yeah, because it can get very, very traumatic for some of our viewers if we take it any further, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that.
But so I just want to reiterate, having this conversation. I started this month, Mental Health Awareness Month, with the goal of wanting to have conversations with different people when it came to different aspects of Bryce's life. And it's in promotion for a docuseries that I'll be releasing at the end of the year called A Star Was Born, that goes into like very detailed events in my son's life. But these preliminary conversations, I started the month off. The first person was more so about sport. I interviewed with the dark side of sport and just going into how his relationship with his coach and his team and the community as fans as well, the family and community as fans, and how that affected him. And I think outside of the concussion, that was one aspect that was really troubling him before he decided to leave us. And then I met with Brandon Vega at Roots Bookstore in South Florida. He's a athlete, a D1 athlete, but he's also an educator and an author and works heavily with youth. And that conversation was geared more towards the athlete's experience as an intellect and how that plays a part in the dynamics when it comes to the athlete's journey. And then with you, which again, I also feel plagued Bryce because being an intelligent black man in America is like not okay. Like you guys unfortunately go through a lot growing up just because you're intelligent. And so, but then most importantly, and why I wanted to end out the month with this conversation is I know for a fact that Bryce's sexual and emotional relationships played a major part in his psyche and how he felt about himself as a young man that is being raised by a mom who he has witnessed go through things that no woman should have to go through.
Right.
And him wanting to be a better man and be a man that his mom can be proud of. And then recognizing that he is among his peers, his athlete peers, and also, just young men, and I would even say older men in the community that kind of encourage his, I'm gonna call it what it is, sexual deviancy.
Yeah, for sure.
Even after
we were praised. We were praised for acquiring as many women as possible.
Even after he passed, I confronted his uncle on his father's side about, there was an incident where he was like in the 11th grade, 16 years old, and he was invited to a hotel party of just teenagers.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you're not going. More for the main reason that if anything happens and somebody decides to say that they didn't consent to anything, I don't want you in the middle of it right before you're about to go into college and pursue your football career.
Yeah.
And his uncles were like, he needs to have this experience. His dad too, he needs to have this experience. He needs to learn how to navigate this world because that's what it's going to be. And it's like, why can't he learn how to navigate this world in a way where it's healthy for him and it is healthy for the young ladies that he's going to be involved with?
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just, that's the dynamic, that's the culture. It is straight across the board. And so, the only time my son broke down in tears in our conversation was when he started to recognize that he was just like his father. And his father is known in the community as being a womanizer, as, having what they call a lot of, hoes. And,
right, yeah.
And that's something that I think they still hold on to this day, even though it hasn't helped him become successful in life as an adult male. That reputation is still something that he can hold on to as an older man. And it's just, how do you raise a young boy to think differently if majority of the examples around him are saying, good job, you cracked that, you got that, bro, you handled that, bro.
I mean, it starts here. It starts here. I was telling my wife, when we do have a son, I'm going to teach him to hold himself until he's married. My nephew is a prime example of that. My brother did an amazing job.
I just want to say that's very radical.
My brother did an amazing job with my nephew, and he is achieving so many things, and he has this light about him as well. And I would want my son to be like that, to hold himself and to be pure as long as you can until you find the right one, and to treat sex the way that it should be treated, with respect.
Right. I used to preach that to my children too before coming into puberty. Just saying, but also helping them understand the power behind sex, the spiritual connection to sex. And again, I think Bryce having that education is why his experiences made him feel so bad about himself. Because compared to his peers, he got the education. He's aware. Maybe not, because you're educating me now today on things that I wasn't aware of. So maybe not fully aware, but still more aware than most of his peers. And I think that's what really caused him to feel less than, to feel like he wasn't worthy. And so, but I also understand that if he was in a community of people, not just men, but people who was co-signing what I was trying to instill in my son, then he would have been able to work through that shame and grief because they would be sharing their experiences and they would be sharing like, I did this and I had to recognize. But people don't even want to have those conversations.
It's tough and nobody wants to get in front of that bullet. Self-reflection is a mug.
Listen, I ain't gonna lie. I after this conversation, I'm recognizing that I've been a rapist my damn self.
I ain't gonna because I didn't listen. If I have never been in the situation that I was in, I think a statement like that would be okay.
I've had my own fair share of persuasive and coercive moments.
And man, I love that you're able to say that because not since my 30s. I'm just it,
but sir,
it prescribes a certain validation
to be able to change somebody's
you know what
man.
I'm saying? Because
it makes you feel powerful.
I don't know.
And
but it starts one person at a time, just like this, conversations like these, and all of us acknowledging the truth about ourselves and our decisions.
To those men who have told me no and I did not listen, I just want to apologize. Because, like I said, this conversation is helping me recognize, and even when my son came to me and shared his experiences with the ladies that he was dealing with that made him feel violated, I still did not connect in that moment that I've been a violator too. It's this conversation where I'm like, yo, I've been that person. Now, here's the thing. I created change in my 30s, but not because I knew I was that person.
Yeah.
I created change because I wanted to be more valued as a woman.
Right.
I wanted to know that a man earned me instead of me trying to use sex to manipulate him.
Yeah.
And so that was what triggered my change. But sitting here today, I'm grateful for the change because I'm recognizing that I have been very toxic in my sexual relationships when I was younger.
We all have, man. And it bothers me again when we aren't evil people. Right?
I mean,
oh my goodness. Can't talk to that, bro.
I embrace my dark side. I'm gonna say that. I wouldn't be able to have this conversation if I didn't embrace my dark side.
Yeah. And
so I don't, but I also don't live in the realm or raise my children in the realm of good or evil or right or wrong or, good or bad. I raise them in the realm of making sure that you are mastering yourself and making sure that whatever you decide to do within your life is pleasing to your spirit and you're passionate about it, because that's going to lead to your purpose. You never have to worry about what your purpose is. Just make sure that you are passionate about whatever you're doing and it's pleasing to your spirit, and you will be on your purpose. And so I think just raising my children with that type of mindset, it does make it a little bit better for them to work through their shame and grief or their shame and guilt when they get into certain things. But I know for a fact Bryce was very overwhelmed because being a star athlete, and he's a star athlete that's intellectual and
handsome.
And handsome, 6'4", 6'3", but I know, as me personally, and I know a lot of young women, older women, intellect is also extremely attractive to women. So I won't even say it's just his athleticism. It is his total being put him in a predicament where he was just flooded with attention. And I think also having the education that he received within our family system, it just made him hold himself accountable to a higher degree than the average male that he was around.
Right.
And so, I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation. I'm hoping that this conversation will be able to allow others to be able to come to terms with, who they are, and realize that that doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a good person. It just makes you aware so that you can make better decisions moving forward.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
Thank
Seriously.
you.
And again, like hearing the accountability come from your mouth, man, it sincerely touches
I'm
me,
still
man.
working through my grief and shame right now,
Nah,
real time.
there's nothing to be ashamed of, man, because these are learned things
There
that we
isn't
pick
anything to
up.
be ashamed of, but I feel like the shame and guilt is what's going to cause me to do better. Right?
Well,
We
I can't
kind of
disagree with
gotta.
that because a part of the reason why I choose to do better is because of my shame and my guilt of the situation that I allowed myself to be in,
Yeah.
and the grief of losing my
So much
doctoral
life.
program. And
Absolutely.
I say this all the time. I don't quite understand why God allowed things to happen the way they did, but I know had I continued the way that I was with that career and the kind of money that I was about to have, then I would have not changed and probably ran myself, to death perhaps. I don't know, but I don't think that I don't think I would have been a good person. Seriously.
Yeah.
I don't think that I was ready for that responsibility. I think that I am now, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
So for that, I'm grateful for the change.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there anything that you want to say to the people? Let them know about SAME, sexual awareness for men's education.
Yeah, sexual awareness for men's education. We are on TikTok and Instagram _Think S.A.M.E. Coming to a college campus or school near you, just DM me, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. I would love to partner with you. I do work heavily with a lot of high school and universities. I do have the opportunity to travel around and speak. And I think bringing you in as like a co-host to sometimes to some of these events that I'm introduced to is a good way to funnel this conversation in, because every time I go out and speak, I speak about Bryce using that phrase. I think I'm using sex to communicate in the wrong ways, but I never get a chance to really go into depth like how we were able to, because I do recognize the discomfort in the in the audience.
Yeah.
And I think also I have to admit, just being a woman having those conversations can be a little jarring, especially when you're in a crowd full of young men or young athletes. So I would love to partner with you and be able to introduce you to my audience, my platform, especially working with these athletes, with these athletes.
I would love to, and that coincides with my entire mission.
Awesome. Awesome. Divinely aligned.
Yeah, divinely aligned. So I told you I just had the first one with the high school today. So that was.
So this is your first one
with the high school, yeah. So I've only had two thus far with
well,
the
you
nursing.
Just say it's only been a few months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it should have been more, man. But
you got to take care of your own mental health.
It should have been more, but I wasn't ready.
You're also transitioning.
I'm still
personally, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So definitely take your time. But people like me, I found you, and I was like, no, your voice needs to be heard. And I felt like, based on the content that I was able to view through your platform, I was like, yeah, this directly relates to like everything Bryce was talking about when it comes to sex in his relationships.
Well, yeah, I would love to.
Awesome.
I need a little push sometimes.
Yeah, I'm here. That's what I do too for a living. So for those of you who don't know me, most people know me on my platform, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm now a life coach, but my background was in marketing and branding and just coaching people on how to build their businesses. But now I work for a couple mental health agencies as a mental health clinician. I'm also provide somatic services like stretch and things like that. But most importantly is being able to do this work through my son's legacy, like just making sure that his memory, his name is able to create change and just help people just have a better life overall. Like and also the system, because a lot of this, even down to our sex, a lot of this is the system.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Appreciate you. So when I get to meet wifey,